Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Kyle Hamer, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at A-Site. A-Site is the leading data platform for the built environment across the globe. Today, we're presenting Simplifying Construction Project Management, Configuring and Controlling Workflows, presented by Alan Drum. In today's session, Alan will demonstrate how A-Site makes it easy to manage complex projects while staying on top of your data without overhauling your processes, making sure that the right person gets the right information at the right time using A-Site's Visual Workflow Builder. For those of you who don't know who Alan is, he's our Vice President of Solution Engineering. He's no stranger to technology, construction, or the built environment. Alan helps organizations just like yours understand how to get the most out of their technology. Over the last 23 years, he's built a reputation for helping construction, architectural, and owner-operator companies solve the most complex challenges using industry giant softwares like Industry Solution for Architects, or IFS, AccuBuild Construction Software, Viewpoint Construction Software, and Maxwell Systems. You're in for a treat today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up during the presentation and we'll have time to answer them at the end. At the end of today's session, there will be a short survey. We would greatly appreciate you taking a moment to let us know how we did. Now, without further ado, over to you, Alan.
Great, thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it, and thanks everyone for joining today. We will be covering configurable workflows as they apply to the A-Site project management solution. And so just a couple things about our agenda today. Just for those that may not have attended our prior webinars, I'll give a brief introduction about A-Site. I'll provide a little bit of an intro about A-Site's project workflow solution, and then we'll see some of the workflows in action and then go deep into the Visual Workflow Designer, a tool that comes standard in our platform and then gives our users a unique capability to really customize and tailor the workflows that are required for any document or any form that they need to control on the platform. And then as Kyle mentioned, we'll open it up for any questions that you may have as we go forward. So without further ado, just a little bit about A-Site for those that may not be familiar. A-Site has been around about 21 years, so we're not a new solution to the market. Certainly a little bit newer to North America. We are headquartered in London and have spent the majority of the time A-Site's tenure in London over that 21 years. But has been in North America since about 2016. We have offices in New York and Houston, of course, and offices regionally around the world. A-Site's platform is really comprised of several different aspects where we can handle supply chain. We can handle a large part of what we'll talk about today, which is in our project portfolio management suite. And then we also handle, asset management and get into, helping our customers with digital twins, things of that nature. But really, A-Site is a data platform. We really help our customers organize, collect, and manage any electronic asset, and then manage and collect any amount of data through our forms. And then, of course, as Kyle mentioned, be able to get that information to the right people at the right time for the appropriate action. So with that, we have a diverse, large global client base. And so, we deal a lot, obviously, in construction, but, many of our customers are in infrastructure or government. We do also work with construction managers and property developers and facilities owners. So, we really run the full gamut of really the AEC industry with a large number of clients globally that run the A-Site platform on their projects daily. With that, the A-Site project workflow, for those that haven't gone through our first 3 webinars, and I do encourage you, if you have not done so, to go through those. You'll get a context to some of the things that I'll mention today. But, we started out the webinar series really talking about our common data environment and really the ability to manage all of the electronic assets, documents, specifications, photos, submittals, whatever the case may be. All of those things through the various aspects of the project lifecycle in, design, pre-construction, whatever the case may be, all the way through execution and asset handover. Then we moved in our second webinar really into the project control side, and we were able to talk about the data collection, right? Really some of the project control forms, RFIs, again, submittal packages, change order requests, daily field reports, meeting minutes, all those different things that we do to collect and manage the data daily through the operation and project execution. And then we went in webinar 3 and talked about field operations and went heavily into all of the things that we could do on the mobile platform. But everything we've done is along with our open architecture platform, that is a true SaaS-based solution, providing our users great amount of flexibility in terms of access and being able to manage their data across the diverse ecosystem, that include internal and external constituents as they manage these projects. So what we're going to focus on today is taking really a component of the platform and seeing how it interacts with really that common data environment. So when we talk about the visual workflow capabilities as part of our platform, you're going to be able to see how we can move different pieces of information through these specified workflows, and whether they're dealing with document management, design coordination, some of the upfront engineering that may occur, any of the things that go back and forth through the document lifecycle, and again, being able to even see these on some of the project controls. One of the things that we did when we talked about our some of the project controls and forms is talk about the fact that our app builder tool provides a lot of built-in workflow in terms of distribution of the information, the different form views, but our visual workflow tool then can be layered on top of that as well to ensure that the information, again, goes to the right person for the right action at the right time. So with that, what I'd like to do is get right into the visual workflow demo. You're seeing kind of a screenshot of that, but we'll get right into the demo itself. So let me switch over to A-Site. So as we get started here, the first thing that you'll notice, again, for those that had not seen A-Site before, we're actually on a dashboard. And so our dashboard in this particular case is oriented around all of the activity that I have with the electronic assets, document tasks, files and documents. And again, A-Site is very driven against this idea of, again, task management. What is the action that's required of the particular user in a particular use case? So if we look at something like the drawings, you'll notice here that it says it has 5 open actions. And what we can do is drill down into this. And what the users are presented with is, again, a traditional folder view by project, but over on the right-hand side is really our log view that's going to show the actual document type, the name of the document, or any document reference. But a couple of key pieces here that are incorporated that are driving this task action that was represented on the dashboard is the ability to see the actual workflow for the document as it was brought onto the platform. And you'll notice that I can see a number of different workflows and the workflow stage that particular document is in. And so if I were to click on any one of these, what you'll notice is that this particular document for drawings is in a running status. It will show the current level in which it's, or stage that this is in, for this particular workflow. And again, that's available for every document as I brought it on to the platform. So just in contrast, you'll see a little bit different workflow. Again, you can have different workflows depending on the document type. They could be initiated manually. They could be initiated automatically. And this one just represents, when this document was initiated on the platform or a new version was brought on, that it was sent to the project manager for review, and that currently it's in that status. It's in a red circle, meaning that it's overdue. And again, I can see that the action that's required of the project manager is to move the status either into review or into for information, in which case it will just notify design and it'll sit there as opposed to going through this other workflow. So again, we provide many of these out of the box, and again, they can be tied to any document and then any form within the platform. If we go to the actual workflow definitions, a couple things that you'll see is that I can always see the workflow instances that are running against any given project. And as you may recall, one of the things that was unique about A-Site is that I could view any number of projects at one time. So I could have my favorite projects, right? They may be a certain portfolio, or in my case, all the projects that I'm managing. But I certainly could then select one project, right, to view all of the information about it. And so in the case of what we're doing today for the demo, I'm just going to drill down and look at one particular project. What you'll see here is, as I'm looking at a particular workflow instance, right, it's going to show all of the workflows that are running, whether they're running successfully, whether they're completed, maybe they failed for some given reason, who they were started by, what object they were against, what was the duration, what were they completed. So again, just another view. Originally, I was at the document going and looking at the workflow that was assigned. Now I'm looking holistically at all of the workflows that are running against this particular project and all the documentation. If I look at the workflow definitions, and this is really the heart of the visual workflow designer, is our ability to take any one of these workflows that we've provided as standard, or for your teams to create any workflow. What they would do is come into the workflow designer, and the workflow designer is a visual tool that's made up of a canvas that allows the users to pull in the various components from the shape repository. And so there's two primary tasks that users are able to configure, and that is obviously a user task, and I'll just drag it out here so you can kind of see it. It automatically prompts the user to fill out the conditions for that particular item. I'll come back to that in a minute. We also have the ability to pull in what we call system tasks. Again, looking at this a little bit differently, what is the system task to be performed? And we differentiate those by color, blue versus yellow, people icon for anything that's role-based or person-based, and then of course the little system cogs for system-based. And if I look at this in the one that we've designed already, again, we've got a start action. The start action can be based on a trigger. It can be based on the user uploading the document or uploading a revision. And then when the this particular next step, this one we've defined for a project manager review, you'll notice that we can put an additional description. We can obviously put in the appropriate action or task. And this is driven from the tasks or the actions that are configured on the platform. And so in this case, we want the project manager to make a status change on the document before it advances to the appropriate path. And so we'll do that particular status change. And then we can identify either a person or the particular role in this case, which is the project manager. And again, I can hover over a project manager and be able to see, who may be in that role. And again, we can assign it to the user who publishes the document or who person who initiates the task in the workflow. So a couple of different ways to organize that. More importantly, we're going to assign, a time frame for the due date. So we're going to give this, before the action shows up in red on my task list and my dashboard, I'm going to be given a certain amount of time to complete the action. And then we also control what we call a workflow transition condition, which allows users to then say, if I had multiple people in this role, I could say I could advance this if only one person completed it, which in this case makes sense, right? Because I'm not really doing a comment, I'm doing a status change. So as soon as the status is moved to review, I could bypass anyone else to look at it and it'll go directly to the design manager for comment. So you get the idea. Those are how we configure the components within any given workflow. So a lot of flexibility, and you can see there's various gateways, different boundary events, different timer events, etc. And so if we look at going from something as simple as what I showed you in the design review or the design comment, we can look at things that are a little bit more comprehensive. And so I think about things where, we're going to do things like ball and court distribution based on submittals or whatever the case may be, right? So I may have this capability to say when it's brought on and we classify the document as a mechanical, electrical versus structural, it could go down a certain path to the appropriate person that's assigned with a ball and court or structural review responsibility. And again, depending on, complexity within that, we could branch off, and again, just representation of what we can do in terms of workflow within the platform. And then last but not least, we can conform the workflow into something as sophisticated as supporting the BIM ISO 19650 document review standards. And so this will show you just a little bit more about the comprehensive nature of the tool. Again, this is something we built standard, but shows you really what users can create or manage on the platform. So as soon as a document's brought onto the platform, we can mark it as private, again, a system task. We can do an auto status so that it immediately moves it into the technical team approval. We can lock it to be sure that the revision is locked and there's no further uploading by anyone. If we're using a document controller, we can obviously distribute it and then move it forward to the appropriate team. So this one you're saying goes through 2 teams, technical, then QA. Before, based on the document classification, we move it to the appropriate path, right? So we would go to more of a system where we're going to update it to reviewed. This one is going to go more through the design review again, with or without comments, and then publishing the document. This other path is really going to go back out to the client, make sure we have authorization, again, with or without comments, until we ultimately publish it. So again, very powerful tool, a differentiating factor for A-Site in terms of what we can offer our clients, and then be able to use this in both a simple and a comprehensive manner to really allow our users to drive the workflows that are important to their business, to their organization, and to their customers, and how they expect to interact with the ecosystem, architects, engineers, subcontractors, owners, whatever the case may be. So that is just a quick overview of being able to utilize and define A-Site visual workflows and how they're configured against electronic assets or forms. Again, all in being able to get the right information to the right person at the right time through a specified and prescribed process. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and turn it back over to you, Kyle. If there's any questions that have come in, I'm happy to answer those.
Thanks for that one. I think there was one question here that I had specifically after looking at that very complex ISO 19650 workflow that you put together. Do all the workflows, again, for us, do they have to be built from scratch, or can they be copied from project to project? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. So no, they absolutely can be copied from project to project. So one of the things that you'll note, obviously, we can create a new definition. We've got the ability to identify and create those workflow triggers or system tasks, but they become objects that are available, as you saw when I had multiple projects selected, that I could actually do, edit those, copy the definitions, activate or inactivate those. So again, one of the hallmarks of A-Site is really its configuration capability. And like every other place that we've shown you in A-Site, we provide same level of configurability for our users to simplify the user experience and ensure what you've built can be leveraged against any project in the future.
Great. You just talked about that configurability as it relates to the users. Is that at a role level or the user level, both? Like, how's that configuration set up for them?
Yeah, so obviously we can drive the security and the role. So, it obviously makes sense that only people might, certain roles may have access to being able to define or change or modify workflows. But that all is in some of the standard configuration that we've gone through before, but it is all role based. And then at the role level, as you may recall, and just to go back here just for a moment, one of the things we did is we provided very comprehensive user roles, and then the user role and access, including the role privileges and permissions. All of those are driven and associated with workflow as well. Great.
There's a question that came in here. Is the software intelligent enough to not have dead ends? How do we figure out if something just dies?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things. One is that it will, as I'd shown, even in the ISO 19650, a couple things that can be done. One is that within that role or user base, we can tell it that only one person needs to actually respond. And then we have this system task that can clear tasks for other users. So think about that if, like in this example, we went both to the document control and the project information manager, and there was some action to be taken, that if one person took the action, the system would know, hey, I'm monitoring that. I see they took the action. I can clear the task for the other person. That's one way to do it. The other way that we do things is through these gateway, through the timer events. So same idea here where, if we don't get a response, right, because there may be a time it goes out to the task team and we said we need comments. Well, if there's no comments, right, there's no action to take. So we simply monitor that for a time period and then trigger the clear comment task based on basically, that duration that says, hey, no comments in 3 days, we're moving it on. So, I've worked on a lot of workflow systems over the years, and those dead ends are certainly a concern. A-Site has the tools through the system tasks and the configuration of the workflow to ensure that we don't have those dead ends, or that if something gets to a dead end, we can also alert the users to make sure the appropriate action is taken.
And I know you covered this, but just to reconfirm, can workflows be applied to the forms or files and documents, or is it really any objects inside of the system?
It's both, really any object when you think about it, because we're really the two major categories of objects that we're managing are the files or the electronic assets, right? So when I think about any electronic asset, I can go to the files area and then initiate a workflow. Again, manually initiate a workflow, or I can also automatically initiate the workflow through that trigger, right? So one of the triggers might be an upload of a document, right, that I want that to automatically go to. The other way is through the project forms. Again, a lot of the workflow capability exists directly in a form, like who we wanted it to be distributed to, what action was going to be taken. That's part of the app builder functionality that I covered in that webinar. But we can also then layer on a workflow on top of that as well, if appropriate, right? There may be a certain trigger based on a status of a document type as an example. And I think about being able to do things a little bit more sophisticated. Like let's say a daily field report came in, and I've got a daily field report, but I have an internal process that I want to drive a review of the daily field report to the project manager, to the operations manager, right? So now I could take that form, I'm going to collect it and do the normal things out in the field through mobile. But once that person submits it, I can automatically set a status to it and then drive it to the appropriate people for review before maybe we publish it. Maybe those are going to the owner, whatever the case may be. So a lot of ways to really control when and how information is again moved to the right person for the right action. But I think about visibility too. A lot of times, right, when we're managing data on a platform like ours, some data should be public, some should be private, depending on where it is in the workflow, and we can control all that through the use of the A-Site workflow as well. Great question.
Great. So questions come in from the group that's maybe a little unrelated here. The question is how do we suggest managing various work packages, which should be instructed under different or the same contract? Is that via the document naming convention, or is there some sort of A-Site feature that can help?
Yeah, so you could do it. Say that again. Let me make sure I understand the question.
How do you suggest managing various work packages, which should be instructed under a different name or the same contract? Is that?
Yes. Yeah, so you can obviously have different classifications of the documents that would do the different work packages. So I think I'm understanding the question. So maybe if we're talking about like different submittal workflows or whatever the case may be, again, one of the things that we did is had a status on the submittal package. You could also do it by discipline. One of the things that A-Site does very well is allow users to configure what we call attributes, or even utilizing form data that becomes immediately actionable within the workflow designer or anywhere else within the platform. So a lot of capability there in terms of what we allow to be used as triggers or segregation events, or even as statuses if I think I answered that the right way for what the question was. But, I could set, for example, on a submittal package, if I choose to, I could actually set it to the, be able to pick up the drawing package type or discipline type, and then use that as a differentiator in the workflow, right? So a lot of ways to do that. I hope I answered that appropriately. Be honest, that's one of those things we do quite well during, discovery and implementation with our clients, is understand those nuances of what they're trying to achieve, but utilizing the various components between attributes, which we can control on the platform, and then those system defined tasks and triggers, we can segregate that and then allow the workflow to go appropriately based on that selection.
Awesome. Like you sounds like you answered it and they got the answer that they wanted. So thanks for that.
You bet. Great.
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. We will be kicking this webinar series off again next year after we get through the holidays here in the end. Look for an update on when that one is in your email. But until next time, make sure you fill out the survey as you exit today so we can improve these. And we thank you for attending and look forward to seeing you in 2023.